Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take your sources and really unpack the most important insights. Today, you've brought us some fascinating material on a key piece of India's defense capability.
That's right. We're diving into the BrahMos missile today.
And this is definitely a topic that's crucial for understanding current affairs, strategic dynamics, especially relevant if you're prepping for exams like the UPSC or, honestly, just want to be properly informed.
Exactly. It's more than just hardware. It's, constantly in the news, shaping how countries think strategically. And we've got some great source material from you, including that recent Eurasian Times piece, which is quite comprehensive.
Right. So our mission here is to sift through this, pull out the core facts, maybe some surprising bits, and really help you grasp why BrahMos matters so much right now.
Think of it as your briefing on BrahMos origins, capabilities, how it's reportedly been used, that misfire incident, and its growing global role.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Diving straight into the sources you sent over. First up, the absolute basics. What is the BrahMos missile?
Okay, so at its core, BrahMos is India's premier supersonic cruise missile. It's arguably the fastest, most advanced they have in that category.
Supersonic, okay. And it's Indian-made.
Well, it's actually a product of Indo-Russian collaboration, a real engineering feat jointly developed by India's DRDO and Russia's MPO Mashinostroyenia. The agreement goes back to February 1998.
Ah, right. Indo-Russian.
Yep, and the name itself kind of tells that story. It blends the Brahmaputra River in India and the Moskva River in Russia.
That's a neat detail. So what makes it technically stand out? What are we talking about in terms of capabilities?
The headline feature really is speed. It travels at up to Mach 3.
Mach 3, 3 times the speed of sound.
Exactly, and that speed makes it incredibly difficult for most current air defense systems to track and intercept effectively. It just comes in too fast.
Wow, okay. Speed is key. What else?
Range is pretty flexible. Depending on the variant, it can go from around 290 kilometers out to over 800 kilometers.
That's quite a span.
It is. And it carries a substantial high-explosive warhead, usually somewhere between 200 and 300 kilograms.
And how does it find its target?
That's the fire and forget part.
Yeah.
You launch it, and it navigates autonomously to the designated target using its own guidance system. The operator doesn't need to steer it in flight.
So fire and forget, high speed, anything else?
Yeah, it also has features like a relatively stealthy radar signature. It maintains high speed throughout its flight, not just a boost phase, offers flexible flight paths like skimming low, and is known for pinpoint accuracy.
That combination sounds, well, pretty formidable. And it's been integrated across the Indian military over time.
Absolutely. It wasn't an overnight thing. The first successful test was June 12, 2001. Then it was inducted progressively. The Navy got it around 2005, the Army in 2007.
And the Air Force, too.
Yes, later adapted for the Air Force's Sukhoi 30 MKI fighters, which is a big deal. And that highlights its versatility. It can be launched from land, sea, air, even submarines eventually. It's one of the few truly universal missile systems out there.
Universal capability? I imagine this wasn't a cheap undertaking.
Definitely not. The initial authorized capital for the joint venture was $250 million US. That's over INR 2,135 crore today. India actually put in slightly more capital, 50.5% to Russia's 49.5%.
And the cost per missile?
Hard numbers are tricky, often classified, but open source estimates put a single BrahMos missile at around INR 34 crore. So yes, a very significant high-value investment for India.
Okay, so we have this advanced, fast, versatile missile. Now, the sources you shared also mention a specific alleged combat use. Operation Sindoor. This sounds important.
It really is, based on the reports. Operation Sindoor supposedly happened on the night of May 6th-7th. The context given in the sources is that it was retaliation for a terror attack in Pahalgam on April 22nd.
And what did this operation involve?
The reports suggest deep penetration strikes inside Pakistani territory. The idea was to leverage BrahMos' speed and precision to hit targets quickly and accurately.
What kind of targets are we talking about?
The material indicates key military installations. Locations mentioned include Chaklala, Rafiq, Rahim Yar Khan, and then later maybe Sargodha, Bulari, and Chakovabad. Things like radar stations, command centers, ammo depots, surgical strikes, reportedly.
And the scale. How many missiles were supposedly used?
According to Indian media reports cited in the sources, maybe as many as 15 BrahMos missiles were fired. The stated goal was to systematically weaken Pakistan's air defense network.
15. Okay. Now, this is where it gets particularly interesting. The Eurasian Times article, pulling from Pakistani sources, mentioned a specific claim about damage.
Yes, this is quite a significant point. A retired Pakistani air marshal, Masood Akhtar, apparently said on Pakistani TV something their government hadn't officially confirmed.
Which was?
He claimed that one of Pakistan's AWACS aircraft, their airborne radar plane, was damaged during this operation. He apparently described 4 successive BrahMos launches, with the 4th hitting a hangar at Bellari Air Base and damaging the AWACS inside.
Wow. If that's accurate, it contradicts Pakistan's official line at the time, right? And raises questions about their defenses against BrahMos.
Exactly. It caused quite a stir. There was also some chatter back then about whether any nuclear-related sites might have been hit, given some of the base locations.
Right, I remember that speculation.
Yeah, particularly around Musharraf Air Base.
Hmm.
But India's Director General of Air Operations, Air Marshal A.K. Party, explicitly stated no nuclear facility was targeted. And importantly, the IAEA, the International Nuclear Watchdog, confirmed there was no radiation leak from any Pakistani nuclear site. That kind of put those radioactive incident claims to rest.
Okay, so military targets, potential AWACS damage, according to that one account, but no nuclear involvement. What was the bigger message India was trying to send here?
The sources frame it as a very clear signal. They quote an American expert, Colonel John Spencer, who said it showed India could strike anywhere in Pakistan, anytime.
That's a bold statement.
It is. And Spencer apparently also commented that Chinese and Pakistani air defense systems are, quote, no match for BrahMos, suggesting it could establish Indian dominance and strike capability.
That assessment from Spencer really highlights the perceived impact of the operation. It wasn't just using the missile, but demonstrating its effectiveness.
Precisely. If Operation Sindoor was indeed the BrahMos' first real combat test, as suggested, it could signify a shift, maybe moving beyond just deterrence theory towards demonstrating active precision strike capability. This missile system has clearly matured into what you might call a global force multiplier.
A force multiplier, yeah. And it's not static tech. The BrahMos family keeps evolving. Tell us about the different versions.
Right, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all system. They've developed variants for pretty much every domain: land, sea, air, and planned for undersea too.
What are some key ones currently deployed?
You've got the land attack versions, Blocks 1 and 2 and 3. Block 3 is interesting because it has enhanced capabilities for hitting targets accurately in mountainous terrain.
Okay, and for the air?
That's the BrahMos ALCM air-launched cruise missile. It's used by the Indian Air Force on their Su-30 MKI jets. Gives them a serious standoff strike capability, meaning the plane can launch from further away.
Right.
Range is somewhere between 290 and 500 kilometers for that one.
And the Navy? Surface ships? Submarines?
Yep. There's the BrahMos Heme, which is the submarine-launched version. They successfully tested a vertical launch from underwater back in 2013, and there are plans to make it compatible with standard torpedo tubes as well.
Versatile. Any longer-range versions?
Yes, the BrahMos ER for extended range.
Yeah.
That pushes the reach out significantly to between 450 and 800 kilometers. It uses an advanced active radar seeker, but the Air Force and Navy use this ER variant.
Okay, that covers what's out there now. What about the future? What's next for BrahMos?
This is where things get really ambitious. BrahMos II is the planned hypersonic version.
Hypersonic, how fast are we talking?
We're talking potentially Mach 8, and a range maybe up to 1,500 kilometers. It's expected to use a scramjet engine, possibly drawing on technology related to Russia's Zircon hypersonic missile.
Mach 8. That would be almost impossible to stop with current defenses.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Then there's also the BrahMos NG, or next generation. The focus there is different, making it lighter, stealthier, around 1,290 kilograms.
Why lighter?
Wider compatibility. So it can potentially be carried by smaller fighter jets, like the MiG-29, Mirage 2000, even India's own LCA Tejas, and also integrated onto smaller warships and submarines. Trials for the NG are apparently slated for 2026.
Interesting. And I think there was a coastal defense version mentioned too.
Right, the NGM-MCB, Next Gen Maritime Mobile Coastal Battery. It's a land-based system designed specifically to target ships. A contract was signed in 2023, delivery starting around 2027. Think mobile launchers on trucks, each carrying multiple BrahMos missiles for coastal defense.
So constant development across the board. But even with advanced tech, mistakes happen. The sources cover that misfire incident quite extensively.
Yes, that was a major event in March 2022. An unarmed BrahMos was accidentally fired by the Indian Air Force. It flew across the border and crashed in an unpopulated area in Pakistan.
Unarmed, thankfully. But still, a huge diplomatic incident.
Absolutely. It definitely raised tensions and regional stability concerns for a bit.
What was the official cause?
A court of inquiry was conducted. The finding was human error, specifically negligence. Apparently, the missile's combat connectors weren't disengaged before it was moved, which they shouldn't have been. Responsibility was placed on a convoy commander.
How did Pakistan respond to that explanation?
They officially rejected it. They said they tracked a supersonic projectile from India's Sirsa Air Force Base, and they made a point of saying that despite tracking it, their own air defenses failed to intercept it.
That failure to intercept is itself quite revealing. Was there other speculation around the incident?
There was. An Islamabad-based think tank, CISS, put out a study suggesting it might not have been purely accidental, hinting at maybe deliberate signaling. Some other analysts wondered if, even though it was a mistake, the incident inadvertently served as a demonstration of BrahMos' speed and penetration capabilities, potentially boosting export prospects.
An unintended consequence, perhaps. Was there a financial cost put on this mistake?
Yes. The Indian government stated the lost missile cost INR 24 crore, about $3 million US.
And consequences for the personnel involved?
Serious ones. 3 IAF officers were dismissed from service after the inquiry. One of them, Wing Commander Abhinav Sharma, was named.
And didn't he challenge his dismissal?
He did, took it to court. The government's response in court was interesting, too. They argued against a court-martial because of the highly classified nature of the evidence. And they specifically mentioned the intense international interest quoting here, the fact that the international community was interested to know the important practical details regarding the firing of missile.
That international focus, even from a mishap, really underscores the missile's profile. Which brings us neatly to exports.
It does. BrahMos is increasingly becoming a flagship product for India's defense industry. For export, though, there's a key limitation. The range is capped at 290 kilometers. This is to comply with the Missile Technology Control Regime, the MTCR, which restricts the proliferation of long-range missile tech.
Got it. So the export version has less reach than some domestic ones. How is India managing exports, given the Russian partnership and current sanctions?
That's a crucial point. India now reportedly produces over 70% of the BrahMos components domestically. That indigenization reduces reliance on Russia and makes it easier for India to export independently, navigating the sanctions landscape.
And who's buying? Any confirmed deals?
The Philippines was the first big one. They signed a U.S. $375 million deal in 2022 for 3 shore-based anti-ship batteries. 2 have already been delivered, apparently. And there's talk of Manila considering follow-on orders worth another $300 million.
The significant first sale. Anyone else close?
Vietnam is reportedly very close to finalizing a large deal, around U.S. $625 million for 5 missile batteries.
Okay, Philippines and likely Vietnam. Where else is there interest?
Quite a bit of interest across Southeast Asia. Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand have all looked at it. This fits well with India's Act East policy, and you can see the strategic appeal given tensions in the South China Sea.
Makes sense. Beyond Southeast Asia?
Yes, interest from the Middle East, too. Countries like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Oman. They might see it as a potent system, without the political strain sometimes attached to Western or Russian arms. And even some interest reported from Latin America, Brazil, Chile, Argentina, Venezuela, mainly for naval and coastal defense roles.
That's a surprisingly wide net of potential customers. What's driving all this interest, according to the sources?
The sources really point to its perceived proven performance, especially the reports around Operation Sindoor. Seeing it allegedly used effectively in a real complex scenario carries a lot more weight than just reading technical specs on a brochure.
So BrahMos isn't just India's top missile anymore. It's becoming a major export item and a symbol.
Exactly. It signifies India's growing technological capability and its expanding strategic footprint through defense diplomacy and exports. So, wrapping things up, you can see from the sources provided, BrahMos is, well, it's much more than just a piece of metal. It's a tech achievement born from collaboration, a strategic tool reportedly tested in combat, like Operation Sindoor, an evolving system with hypersonic ambitions, and now a key element of India's defense exports.
And that misfire incident serves as a stark reminder of the complexities and, frankly, the risks involved with such powerful technology, not to mention the international scrutiny that comes with it. Understanding BrahMos, it really gives you critical insights into India's defense posture, its strategic thinking, and its place in the global arms market. A detailed look like this, drawing straight from sources like that Eurasian Times piece, is super valuable, whether you're deep in UPSC prep or just want to stay genuinely informed.
Absolutely. It underscores how one technology can echo through military doctrine, foreign relations, industrial capacity, and even issues of internal accountability.
And here's something to really chew on. if BrahMos and maybe operations like Sindoor signal a potential shift for India, moving from purely deterrence towards a more active precision strike doctrine. What does that really mean for stability in South Asia? And what happens as systems like this become more widely available through export? That's a whole other layer.
Indeed. Big questions to consider.
Well, we hope this deep dive gave you a clearer, more nuanced picture of the BrahMos missile based entirely on the material you brought to the table today. If you found this breakdown useful maybe for your studies, UPSC focus, or just general knowledge, please do give this deep dive a like and subscribe to the channel. It genuinely helps us know we're hitting the topics that matter to you.
And definitely, if you have more questions on BrahMos or other topics you'd like us to explore using sources you find interesting, drop a comment below. We really value that interaction and exploring the materials you share.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Until the next time.